From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Yasmin Al-Taji. It's Thursday, July 17th. Here are today's headlines. The Syrian government and Druze leaders have reached a ceasefire agreement. It comes after days of escalation that included what witnesses describe as humiliating attacks on the Druze minority and Israeli attacks on the Syrian capital. As of Wednesday evening, it wasn't clear whether the agreement would hold. A ceasefire that was announced just the day before quickly collapsed. Syrian troops and their militia allies had widened an offensive against the mostly Druze governorate of Sweida. Witnesses said the army had deployed snipers and fired rockets on residential areas. But the army faced resistance. Druze fighters inflicted major losses on government forces in what residents called coordinated and lethal attacks. Danny Makki was there in Sweida. Here he is reporting for The National.
There's been hundreds killed from both sides. The Israelis are striking Syrian government positions. They've attacked the Ministry of Defense in Damascus and reportedly the presidential palace.
The Syrian army headquarters that Israel had attacked is adjacent to Umayyad Square, one of the capital's busiest intersections that leads out to the main road to Lebanon. At least one civilian was killed and 18 people injured in Israel's strikes as of Wednesday.
It's been really just carnage for the past 2 to 3 days. After an initial bout of violence between Syrian Bedouin tribesmen and Druze militias, what we've seen is basically a large-scale assault by Syrian government forces on the restive southern province of Sweida. Now, this has been in the making for a number of months. It's not something which has just sparked up over the past few days, and we know that there's a wider community in Sweida. Not necessarily all of them support Hikmat al-Hajari, who is the one controversial Druze sheikh who is seeking foreign intervention and who has rejected any deals with the Syrian government so far.
The attacks by the army were meant to spread government control over Sweida, where many Druze have resisted the new government led by former members of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham.
The bigger problem is the violations which have happened in the civilian areas. We've seen fighters coming from the north of Syria with razor blades, shaving the mustaches of Druze elders, of Druze males, and that's something which the Druze in their culture, they have large mustaches. That's part of their heritage and their culture, and it's definitely a ploy to humiliate them in another bout of sectarian violence, and that's something which the Syrian government has not prevented so far.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he's in quote-unquote no rush to talk to Iran. That statement came on Tuesday after last month's strikes on nuclear facilities. According to Trump, Tehran was hoping to engage in discussions with Americans. But Iran said this week that it'll not resume nuclear talks with the U.S. if negotiations are conditional on halting its uranium enrichment activities, as according to state news agency IRNA. The National's AlTaher reports.
This is unusual given that Trump had given Iran 60 days to reach an agreement earlier this year with American negotiators during indirect talks in Oman before greenlighting Israeli strikes on Tehran that began on the 61st day of that grace period.
Tehran and Washington held several rounds of negotiations aimed at reviving a nuclear deal this year. Those efforts were derailed, though, after Israel launched strikes on Iran in June, triggering 12 days of war that the U.S. entered. After a ceasefire was announced ending the war, Trump signaled interest in returning to the negotiating table. But Tehran maintains it has a right to the peaceful use of nuclear power.
Generally speaking, the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, which was signed under Barack Obama and which Donald Trump pulled out of in 2018, expires on October 18th of this year, 10 years after it has been signed. So what is to happen whether a new agreement will be signed before the end of August or whether the original agreement, which is largely not in effect, is going to expire on October 18th, is yet to be seen.
Israel has told Gaza mediators it plans to create a security zone along its entire border with Gaza, as well as the enclave's Mediterranean coast. That's according to sources who spoke to The National. The National's Hamza Hendawi reports from Cairo.
The sources also said that Israel told the mediators it plans to evict residents in the North Gaza towns of Jabalia and Beit Lahya and resettle them in Al-Mawasi, which is a narrow strip of coastal land near the southern city of Khan Yunis.
Ceasefire talks have continued in Qatar for a second week without a breakthrough. The sources have said the talks stalled over the extent of Israel's withdrawal from Gaza, which Hamas rejects as insufficient. The main provisions of the proposals on the table now include a 60-day truce, release of hostages held in Gaza, flow of humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and discussions on an end to the war. Meanwhile, Israel says it's created an army-controlled route through the Gazan city of Khan Yunis. It's called Magan Oz, and it's the latest in a series of corridors to cut the strip into sections. It stretches about 15 kilometers between eastern and western Khan Yunis, according to a military statement on Wednesday.
Senior Hamas official Bassem Naim said the road showed Israel was not serious about reaching a ceasefire deal. Quote, it confirms the occupation's long-term intentions and plans to remain inside the Gaza Strip, unquote, said Mr. Naim.
That's all for this morning's headlines. You can get these stories and follow live updates at our site. Yasmin Al-Taji, The National.